It's a big fight. You know, we have been ahead since the beginning of the season, but we know we are facing a very strong competitor, and we just have to concentrate race by race to try to improve the situation at every race and to score points, and then we will see what happens at the end of the season.
Difficult first start to the season, first 2 races, bit of a disaster, but balance very good. Of course, it's when the going gets tough, the tough gets going, and coming from behind is sometimes easier to get motivated for.
Round 10 of the FIA Formula One World Championship, the Austrian Grand Prix at the A1 Ring. The 23rd Grand Prix this beautiful country has hosted since 1964. Welcome to the Mercedes-Benz pre-race show on Fox Sports Net. Hello, I'm John Watson, once again sitting in for Mike Joy. And with me in the booth is 2-time world sports car champion Derek Bell, while down in the pits is former Williams team manager Peter Windsor. Well, let's have a look at this weekend's pre-race menu. Eddie misses Austria. Well, we're going to tell you about that in more detail a little further on. Mid-season report card. That's our very personal view of what's taken place so far. Anti-stall devices, what is it? We'll develop that a little bit later as well. And my old teammate Nicky Lauda in our one-on-one with Peter Windsor. Well, the pit lane is open and cars already out on track. Of course, it opened at 1:30 local time, and there we see the man who must feel disappointed, Michael Schumacher, only 4th on the grid. That's his worst qualifying since his 5th place back at Silverstone in the British Grand Prix. But he's still leading the championship by those 12 points, so let's look at the Drivers' Championship. Michael Schumacher on 56, David Coulthard up to 44 in 2nd place, Hackett in 3rd, Barrichello 4th, Fisichella a fine 5th, and Ralf Schumacher an equally fine 6th.
And in the constructors, it's Ferrari with a slender lead of 88 over 82 for McLaren, 18 for Benetton, 17 for Williams, 11 for Jordan, and 9 for BAR.
Well, we just look to see Michael Schumacher, or a Ferrari. We think it's Michael Schumacher makes his way back in, and this is what is pretty normal these days, the 15 minutes in which the pit lane is open, drivers in and out of the pits. And there's been an awful lot of news over the last 2 weeks as we watch Schumacher come back into the pits, so let's just catch up and see what that news has been.
No Eddie Irvine in today's Austrian Grand Prix. Severe abdominal pain struck him on Friday. He's back in England now, and we talked shortly to Neil Ressler, Jaguar's chief executive, about this. His place taken, of course, by Luciano Berti, the Brazilian Jaguar test driver. Meanwhile, for the Grand Prix Glitterati, this was a great week. In Italy, Ferrari's chairman, Luca Montezemolo, finally got married to his longtime sweetheart, Ludovica. 23 years, the age difference there, they say that is not an issue. Indeed, they say it's a bonus. Guests included Gianni Agnelli, Michael Schumacher, and the great up-and-coming footballer Eli Young. Meanwhile, down in Sardinia, Flavio Briatore opened his new nightclub, aptly named the Billionaire Club. Guests there included Naomi Campbell, Fergie, and of course the inevitable Eddie Irvine, and not John Watson and Derek Bell, it should be noted. Meanwhile, Flavio Briatore has confirmed that yes, Benetton Renault are talking to Jacques Villeneuve. Jacques wants $11 million to drive for them next year, and Flavio says that is a little bit too much at the moment. So wait and see what happens there. Finally, Dario Franchitti's name firmly in the ring at Jaguar. Jaguar scheduled to test him very shortly, and Franchitti looking good for a Jaguar drive next year.
I think the most important part is that if I was Briatore, is I would try and raise that 11 million, because if anybody like Benetton needs a man, it is Benetton Renault for the next few years. They need Jacques Villeneuve, that leadership and that sort of storming ability that he has.
Yeah, I think Villeneuve would really bring Benetton alive. In fact, it's going to be Renault, and they want somebody to lead a team, direct the team. But there's a team that's been in the news as well, Jaguar, and it's not with Luciano Berti. It's about Eddie Irvine. He had severe abdominal pain, so on Saturday morning, Peter Windsor caught up with Neil Ressler to explain, had he any knowledge of Eddie's major problem?
No, none whatsoever. I spoke to him many times on Thursday and on Friday. Friday night, last night, about 7 o'clock, I got a phone call, spoke to Eddie. He said that he had been having some pains in his abdomen since about midweek, and that during the day Friday they got worse. He'd stopped by to see Professor Watkins, who, as you know, is the head physician for Formula One, and Professor Watkins recommended that he leave last night, Friday night, and go back to England for a proper diagnosis of whatever is causing this problem. So he went, and as of about 10 this morning, they were still doing tests and had not yet reached a conclusion. Last evening, we decided that we would try to put our test driver, Luciano Berti, in the car, and we had to do a lot of scurrying to do that because he didn't even have his super license, nor did he have his driving uniform and his helmet here. But we got approval on the super license. We had his suit and helmet flown down overnight, and he was in the car this morning.
Well, if ever Jaguar needs some leadership, they need Eddie Irvine back as soon as possible because they are floundering dismally at the moment, I have to say, John.
Yes, they are. And for Luciano Berti, it's a vertical learning curve. Jumped in a Saturday morning, had gearbox problems, did a fine job qualifying in 21st, but it's going to be awfully tough for him this afternoon. Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard. But this is David Coulthard a few days earlier. He's at St Andrews in Scotland, and he's not preparing for the Open. He's just there doing a little bit of R&R. And let's see how David's putting skills. Are they any good or not? Well, he's close enough to the hole. Did he miss? No, he didn't. He got it in. Well done, David. Might have been quite about it, but somebody ruefully said, I think it might have been David Coulthard, that don't worry, Rubens, when the lights go out, Michael will cut across your front and you'll suddenly find yourself lifting off, and it'll be back to status quo. Michael Schumacher leading the charge for Ferrari. But let's have a look at this A1 ring, 2.6 miles around. Derek, give us a lap of the A1 ring.
Yes, well, it's a circuit that the drivers actually like. There's some pretty fast corners out there, and of course it's not quite as great as the original course, but you can see some of the braking, overtaking areas. Let's go out and do a lap with Alexander Wurz. We're coming up past the pits, up into turn one. He goes slightly uphill as he breaks into there from 185 miles an hour, 80 mile an hour as he gets to the apex of the corner. And then he's working his way up the hill on this sort of relatively smooth circuit, but it's actually abrasive to the tyres. Tyre compound generally is a soft compound as he brakes very, very heavily, nose diving into that corner, trying to get the grip, not too much oversteer as he comes out. You don't want to get up on that curve more than you have to. Going along the top straight now towards the Gosser curve, one of the sponsors' curve, 185 miles an hour in sixth gear. An opportunity to overtake there, I think possibly the best place on the circuit. A bit of understeer as he turns in, takes it out wide now. There is very little overtaking from here on, that is for sure. As he works his way down towards the Niki Lauda curve, 100 miles an hour as he pops into that one. He accelerates up to 150 in fourth gear for the next one. The Power Horse curve. You don't want to get too wide here because you get on that curve, it deflects you from getting down this next trajectory, leading up to 180 miles an hour down to the Jochen Rindt curve, a very famous Austrian driver. This is where Mika Häkkinen was absolutely outstanding in qualifying. Penultimate corner comes down 135 mile an hour, 110 through the last curve. As he pours himself on the straight, that was a lap with Alexander Wurz to the A1 ring.
Well, there's the lovely Heidi, David Coulthard's girlfriend. In fact, now his fiancée. But just thinking about poor Alexander Wurz, starting 14th in the grid. Little realistic chance here this afternoon of him repeating the Grand Prix success that Niki Lauda had back in 1985. And so far, I believe I'm correct in saying he's the only Austrian to have won his home Grand Prix. But as we mentioned earlier, Michael Schumacher still leading the championship. But as we mentioned a little bit earlier, Derek, Peter and myself, we have put together our mid-term report cards on drivers, teams, events, whatever. So, Derek, let's start off with you. Who are your top and best?
Well, I have to say the best car so far this year, in my opinion, is the Ferrari, without much of a doubt. Obviously, McLaren's close. Best driver, well, it has to be Michael Schumacher. I still believe he's head and shoulders above the others. The worst car, and unfortunately, it's not really the worst, it's just the most disappointing to me. The Jaguar has been the disappointment of the season as far as I'm concerned. The most disappointing driver to me is Alexander Wurz. I really hoped he would have done a heck of a lot more with his life this last season. The best race was the French Grand Prix, overtaking and a lot of drama there, with David Coulthard, of course, having that excellent win, probably the best he's had. And the most significant technical change to me has been the FAI's control of engine management, something I'm sure we'll see a lot more of in the future. So let's go down and see what Peter Windsor's views are on his mid-season report.
Derek, I was hoping you weren't going to ask. Best car, well, I have to go for the McLaren Ilmor Mercedes. Very close between them and Ferrari, of course, but at the moment, McLaren just getting the edge. Best driver, Michael Schumacher. Worst car, given their package, given their facilities, I have to say the Prost Peugeot should be doing a better job there, I think. Worst driver, Eddie Irvine. I think the Jaguar package is a good one overall, big budget, and I think Eddie should be doing more with that at the moment. Best race, British Grand Prix probably. Lots of factors coming in there. Nice to see Rubens leading for half distance. Great qualifying session. Lots of different factors. It was a good race all round, I thought. And finally, most significant technical breakthrough. What about that single exhaust in the McLaren diffuser? Don't quite know what it does, but I'm sure you'll see several teams next year adopting that. John, I'm sure you'll disagree with me about Eddie Irvine, so go for it.
Well, Peter, that's very kind of you. Eddie Irvine is an Ulsterman like I am, but currently the best car is certainly the Ferrari, in my view, over the 9 races we have seen. Not just thinking about here in qualifying. Best driver, I have to say once again, Michael Schumacher. The worst car, and a great disappointment, because Jaguar have brought an awful lot to Formula 1 in their very short time in it, but they've got an awful lot of work to do to be a competitive team. My worst driver, and this is controversial, Mika Häkkinen. It's not that he's a bad driver, it's just he seems to have lost his path or thread. I don't know why, but he's back on pole here this weekend. The best race for me was the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Schumacher was just absolutely outstanding in appalling conditions. It understated why he is the best driver currently in Formula 1. The most significant technical change has been the ongoing car safety crusade by the FIA. Well, there's the man I'm very keen on, Michael Schumacher. An awful lot of work to do this afternoon, and after the French Grand Prix, where they had a lot of problem with the rear tyres, Ferrari are working hard to get that car to be a lot more consistent. But remember, that report card from Peter, Derek and myself is a purely subjective one, and we may not always be in agreement with you, the audience. We're going to go to break now. When we come back, we'll have qualifying. And well, look here, some of the faces of people. Gerhard Berger at BMW, John Todd at Ferrari, Eddie Jordan at Jordan, Norbert Haag a bit happier than the rest. Alain Prost face thumbs it up. Join us in a minute. Welcome back to the Mercedes-Benz pre-race show on Fox Sports Net. And in 2 weeks' time, we're off to Germany to the Hockenheim Ring. Sunday, July the 30th, 10 a.m. local. One of the quickest Grand Prix in the calendar. So there's Flavio Briatore and Giancarlo Fisichella. They're the Benetton team, and really Fisichella is the #1 driver, and Flavio Briatore. Well, am I going to keep Fisichella or not? Because if I'm going to take Villeneuve, the kind of deal that I have with Fisichella, it goes up by the year at compound. I can't afford both of them, so we might farm Fisichella out to somebody else to enable him to get Villeneuve. But let's get back into the qualifying, and Derek, take us through the qualifying.
Well, there was one man that had a really outstanding view of qualifying, and it was this man here, up there in his, we call him a winkle picker, right up there in the sky. Incredible view of the circuit. It was drizzling a little bit at the start, as you can see by the haze, so a lot of the guys got in line to get out early. Very rare these days. We seem to sit there for ages waiting for them to come out. David Coulthard gets straight in the groove. He has a very fine second place. Not really what he had hoped to get, but he was reasonably content with his second place. Then it was Ricardo Zonta, his best qualifying ever. Remember, he was World GT champion for Mercedes, and he uses this circuit a lot. He was very happy with 6th place. Johnny Herbert, meanwhile, running reasonably well, running as #1, but he had a broken suspension on the Jag. That was him out of the way. And there's Luciano Berti, the replacement driver, only came in that morning to stand in for Eddie Irvine. Poor guy had to get out and learn the track remarkably quickly. Frentzen goes out, only qualifies 15th, but my goodness, they had lurid times trying to keep their car under control. Truly finishing at a very good 7th place despite all that oversteer. Michael Schumacher, well, he really got it all backwards and forwards, spinning all the wheels, ruined those tyres, Michael. Couldn't get it going at all this weekend, not happy with the low speed and the high speed combination. And he went out very wide on what he thought was going to be his quickest lap. He could only manage 4th. Mika Häkkinen had this amazing downhill section through the last 2 turns to set pole position. His 25th pole. Absolutely wonderful for him. Let's go down to a very happy Mika Häkkinen at the press conference and hear what he has to say.
Let's hope everything's gonna go 100% and we're gonna manage to go around the first 2 corners, not like last year, but a little bit differently. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's race.
Well, there's a lot of happy Finns there. Let's go down to another very happy man, a Brazilian Zonta at 6th place, talking to Peter Winter.
Yes, great qualifying performance from Ricardo Zonta. Out-qualified Jacques Villeneuve for the second time this year, P6 on the grid. Ricardo, last year with the Supertech, this year with the Honda. Tell us what it's like driving around Austria with that different power.
You need a lot of power, and the Honda is helping us a lot with the power. You know, here we improved the positions a lot from last year to this year.
And you're not the only guy who did it, but you went off in a big way in that last corner. Is this circuit particularly bad for just sudden breakaway like that?
It's very slippery, this circuit, and you know, when you try push for 1/10 or something like that, it's very hard.
Well, it's very competitive and it's very close, but he did the best job out there. P6, great job.
Yeah, well, I'm very pleased about the job from the team, and also this result is very good for my career.
Thank you very much.
Well, here are the characteristics of the A1 ring. The track surface is abrasive and the grip level, surprisingly, is very low, Derek.
Well, they use a soft compound generally, and the tyre wear is high, as you can see.
Brake wear also is very high, and maximum throttle was 67% of the lap.
And strangely enough, fuel consumption is only medium, considering it's actually a very high-speed circuit.
So we're having a look at the Jordan team, and great qualifying from the young Italian Jarno Trulli. He qualified in 5th place. Very disappointing for Heinz-Hauer Frentzen. He qualified down in 15th. But Mika Häkkinen, he is back. He blitzed qualifying. Massive 0.385 quicker than his teammate David Coulthard in an identical car. So there we are looking down on the circuit. And Peter Windsor, he's been doing a little bit more tech work for us in the pit lane. He's with the Minardi team once again, and he's going to explain to us anti-stall devices.
Last week, with the help of our friends here at Minardi, Fond Metal, Ford, Cosworth, we showed you the systems it takes to start a Formula One engine. Well, we've had a lot of response to that, specifically about what it takes to keep that engine running, what a Formula One anti-stall strategy is all about. Well, this effectively is a Formula One anti-stall strategy. It operates mainly on the chassis side, as distinct from the engine side, because what it's all about is pre-setting a rev limit below which, obviously, the engine will stall, something like 2,100 revs, for example, and then the chassis engineers program the clutch to disengage the millisecond the revs drop below that. Simultaneously, of course, the engine revs have to be picked up. That all happens electronically as a result of programming that goes on here. Now, it doesn't always work. If the race is 30 laps old, everything's very hot, the car's spinning backwards into the sand, the anti-stall device will probably not come on. It's actually designed mainly for start systems. Equally, if you're David Coulthard and you do the procedure absolutely correctly, but there's a slight blockage in the fuel flow or something like that on the grid in Canada, it will also stall. Finally, it may come on inadvertently. You might make a good start, but then the engine might fall into a natural trough as it's going into second gear, and the anti-stall system might suddenly come in. All the driver can do at that point is wait, declutch, and then get the thing going again.
Well done, Peter. Well, thank you, folks, for all your email addresses. Keep sending them in as we look at Rubens Barrichello. Our email address is formula1@foxsports.net. So we're looking at Jaguar with a little bit of a problem. One of the cars being pushed away. But in the meantime, at Zeltberg, teams fly in. Here is the military airfield. It's 1 mile from the racetrack. And Flavio Briatore and the drivers, and that's Briatore's plane there we're looking at. Join us back here on Fox Sports Net in a moment. Is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, located on the web at mbusa.com. Well, we heard some of our guys from Fox Sports Net made a visit to this. This is the local police station. We don't know whether it was voluntary or involuntary, but let's look at the remaining 2000 schedule. July 30th, it's Germany, the Hockenheim Ring, 10 a.m. August 13th, Hungaroring. 27th, Belgium to Spa-Francorchamps. Then September, it's Monza in Italy. Fantastic race, my favourite of the year. A new Grand Prix in the calendar, 23rd, that's qualifying, Saturday 23rd, and 24th, a Grand Prix at 1 p.m. ET. First time since 91 a Grand Prix in the United States. Then into October, it's Japan on the 8th of October, and the final Grand Prix of the year, 21st of October in Malaysia. David Coulthard and Bernie Ecclestone, and of course one of the 3 famous tenors, and his names escape me, but he is a great Formula One fan, and well, moments ticking away here, not very long to go. Just catch a glimpse of Mika Häkkinen as he gets his gloves and helmets on.
But we have to talk about the Jaguar being pushed off the grid, John. You see him even being pushed down the pit lane, so I don't know what's going to happen there.
Well, in the meantime, we've got a big race, and there we're looking at the Jaguar team, cars being shuffled backwards and forwards. So we're going to go and look at Indy. Derek Bell was there a month or so ago, and he's going to look at what Indy has done for Formula One. I'm impressed. I'm sure Formula One will be.
Before the Indianapolis Motor Speedway could actually host the United States Grand Prix, there were two specific things they had to build, which wouldn't be utilized either by NASCAR for the Brickyard 400 or by IRL for the Indy 500. And that was an infield motor circuit incorporating the oval, and the other was these 36 magnificent garages that are built for the individual teams. They actually open out onto the pit lane for Formula One racing. This is a classic example of a triple garage which will be used by, let's say, Ferrari or McLaren or Jordan or whoever. And upstairs they have a hospitality unit that's actually adjoining it for their use as well. Well, just one of the things that have been built by the incredible Indianapolis Motor Speedway in preparation for this year's United States Grand Prix. Going to be state-of-the-art, John. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to lead Formula One circuits to another level. Indy's done a superb job, and I think everybody cannot wait to get there and see how that race is going to be promoted and how the fans are going to listen to the Formula One cars for the first time. I mean, at Indy, that pit straight, it's going to be awesome. So we're looking down on the grid. But in the meantime, Peter Windsor caught up with one of my old teammates, Austria's three-time world champion, Niki Lauda, a man who's done everything in life, and also he survives.
It was right here at the Österreichring that a young Niki Lauda began his motor racing career, first in little 2-litre sports cars, subsequently in Formula One. He became a 3-time world champion, and he founded Lauda Air, a major international airline. We spoke to Niki and asked him what he was up to today.
Basically, I'm running the airline, which I started in 79 and then again in 85. So my main job is to run 777, 767, 737s.
And is it a fight or is it a pleasure?
Depends. So sometimes it's a fight with the union, sometimes it's a pleasure. So it's a question like every other business. It's hard work. You can't compare it with racing, because racing was really easy because I only had to worry about myself. Now I have to worry about 2,000 people and 26 airplanes, so it's a different ballgame.
When you come to a Grand Prix and you see the way Formula One is now and the business that it is, and you see Jackie Stewart selling his 4-year-old team for $100 million, do you ever think, maybe I should have done a Formula One team, or maybe I will do a Formula One team?
I didn't want to do one because driving in a team was always the easiest way, because if you've been successful, the other people had to do the work and you made the money. Then I decided, for whatever reason, to run an airline and start this in Austria. So this was a decision which I do not regret, because I would have done the same thing. But as you said, it's much easier to make more money in Formula One and have a different life. So therefore I come back here and then watch my friends what they're doing. But basically I'm happy with what I've done.
I've never asked you this, I don't know why, but what actually happened in that accident at the Nürburgring? How did you go off the road? Was it a driver error? Can you remember the situation?
The upper wishbone broke. They had a new magnesium part on the engine which supported the rear suspension, and when I hit the curb, the car made this sort of move and broke the upper linkage to it. So the right rear wheel just started steering, and therefore I veered off into the rockets there, into the rocks there.
And can you remember every detail to the point where you lost consciousness?
No, I cannot. I lost memory 3 laps before the accident. I can't recall the last 3 laps driving, and then the accident, which never came back. So if I wouldn't have seen this in television, I would have never known what happened.
Do you have a very good memory of all your races and everything that happened throughout your career?
Yes, basically yes. I mean, the important ones I can certainly tell you. When I finished 10th, I don't remember, but the important ones where championships were decided or winning races, yes.
Last question, Niki. How is your future? Do you want to be more and more successful, achieve more things, or do you see a retirement somewhere along the line?
No, I don't see my retirement at all. I mean, I'm happy what I'm doing now. I keep my eyes open and look in other different projects. So if something comes up which is interesting to me, I will certainly do it.
Do you love flying?
Flying, I mean, I flew 12,000 hours until now, so I do a lot of flying. And I fly in my airline about 700 hours a year, from 777 all the way down to 737. So you get used to it. I mean, it's not the same sort of adventure like it was to me in the beginning, but it's certainly part of my job. I can run the company in a much better way if I fly the airplanes and then come back in the office and change things.
Thank you very much. It's great to talk to Nicky about life, the universe, anything you want, really. The guy is just brilliant. He's very, very sharp. And when you hear him enunciating his words, when you see the way he thinks, you can see why he won those 3 World Championships.
Thanks, Peter. Well, he was a great teammate as well. Tough at times, but that's the nature of the beast. But Nicky, of course, above all things, is a linear thinker. Now, stay with us. We're going to be back in a moment for the Grand Prix of Austria. We've got the starting grid and race start. See you soon. Welcome back to the Mercedes-Benz pre-race show on Fox Sportsnet. There's the weather chart. Temperature, chilly 60 degrees. Track temperature, 72. Humidity, 25%. And McLaren on the front row. They were on the front row last year, Derek, but we had a funny start.
We most certainly did, as David Coulthard, in fact, sort of tried to come up the inside of Mika Häkkinen into turn 2, this uphill right-hander. Thought Mika would let him through, but Mika thought otherwise. He said, I'm the team leader. Mika went round. Eddie Irvine, of course, had to make a hell of a run from that position, and Mika Häkkinen came back incredibly strongly right through the field.
Well, we're looking at the field. And it certainly did change the championship status. I mean, Mika Häkkinen must have been wondering, what am I going to do? I've got a teammate who takes me off. Even Ferrari haven't managed to achieve that so far. But Mika Häkkinen back on that pole position with a devastating qualifying run on Saturday afternoon. As we wait for the cars to make this final parade lap for the 71-lap Grand Prix. So let's have a look at our Mercedes-Benz starting grid as the cars leave on their formation lap. Mika Häkkinen, that wonderful pole position lap.
And David Coulthard only 3 tenths behind him. Can't be too happy with that.
Rubens Barrichello, third quickest, he out-qualified teammate, Michael Schumacher.
Well, Michael's had this trouble all weekend of getting the handling just right on the car, and in fact has elected in the last moments to get in the spare. He finds it has a better balance.
Best of the rest was Jarno Trulli in his Jordan.
Riccardo Zonta having his career best, qualifying 6th place. Excellent.
And Jacques Villeneuve, 7th place in the grid, behind his own teammate.
And Giancarlo Fisichella still doing a very good midfield job there for Benetton.
Sauber and Mika Salo, good performance, 9th place in the grid.
And Jos Verstappen showing that the Arrows do have a little bit more performance in that Supertech engine.
And 11th place, the Brazilian Diniz in this Sauber.
And Pedro de la Rosa showing that there really is performance in that engine.
Best qualifying for Nick Heidfeld in his short Formula 1 career, 13th in the grid.
And Alexander Wirtz, local boy, wishes only he could be further up the grid, but he isn't.
And a very disappointed Frentzen on the harder tyre in his Jordan, 15th place. Johnny Herbert, of course, in the first of the Jaguars, 16th. John Alesi in the Prost, 17th, and Jenson Button in the first of the Williams, can't believe that, in 18th. Ralf Schumacher, 19th, and Marc Genet in 20th. Luciano Berti should be 21st, but he's in the pit lane in a water leak. This start from the pit lane. And last, Mezzacani in the Minardi in 22nd place. Now, cars making their way down to the Jochen-Rindt curve. And these 2 corners, the Jochen-Rindt curve and the A1 curve, the final 2 corners, Derek, that's where Mika Häkkinen really was stunning.
Yes, he was absolutely outstanding through there yesterday. One has to say he really made up time at that point. But Mika has been away on a few days' rest as we look at his wife there, who seems to be heavy with child, I have to say, John, although Mika won't admit it yet.
No one's admitting it, and there's the rather worried look in the face of Jean Todt. The Ferrari team are concerned about tyre wear, particularly rear tyre wear, as Mika Häkkinen comes up onto the grid. So let's look at the tracks that have hosted Grand Prix. They've all basically been in the Zeltweg area. Zeltweg itself was a military airfield, 1964. Then the A1 ring was built in 1970. The A1 ring was built in 1996, 97, 8 and 9, and now 2000. And the Österreich ring, 18 Grand Prix from 1970 through to 1987. So let's watch and see. The lights will come on in sequence, the red lights. When they go out, we'll have a start to the 23rd Austrian Grand Prix. And it's going to be exciting into the first corner. Well, the 2 McLarens into the first corner side by side. Coulthard backed off.
Schumacher spun. Chaos at turn 1. Schumacher bound on the sand. It might well have been the Ferrari. Oh my goodness, look at this.
Well, I think we're going to see a restart. I think we'll see the red flag, because that is absolute chaos down in the Castrol curve. And Ferrari, both of them, Schumacher out. Rubens Barrichello went very wide, but look, the 2 McLarens have got, well, almost half the length of the back straight.
It would seem to be Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher and Jarno Trulli.
And that is real disaster for Ferrari. The safety car appears to be coming out. Michael Schumacher, damage to the front of the car. We think suspension damage. And there we see the flag waving. That's a yellow flag not to indicate at that particular corner. And we're looking down, and congestion as we see the Mercedes, the safety car out. Norbert Haug, Geria Hakkinen looking. They will of course catch up. Or the fact that the field will catch up with the safety car as they come around the first lap. The wave flag indicating that we are under safety car rules. The cars and drivers must slow down. Mika Salo is in third place, Derek, and what a start. We thought we were going to see excitement, but there Fisichella makes his way back to the pits. His car is craned away. Fisichella started this Grand Prix in 8th place in the grid. Michael Schumacher was 4th. So how did Fisichella and Schumacher get into contact?
It seemed like Michael was just tapped from the rear. He looked quite under control turning into the corner, and suddenly he went round. He was well on the right-hand side of the track.
Well, if anything's going to turn this championship on its head, it is what happened here within about 10 seconds of the start. We saw Coulthard get the initial jump at Mika Hakkinen, but he in fact appeared to me to back off. Let's look at that start again, Derek.
Well, he didn't show it very well that time, I didn't think, John. I thought David certainly did jump the start, whether he'll get penalised. Now, let's just look at Schumacher on the inside, on the left side, he gets touched. Yeah, he gets touched from behind by Zonta.
I think that might have been Ricardo Zonta. Your first time is at the sharp end of the grid, and there we see one of the Sabres. I think that's Denise. And I think that was just simply inexperience on the part of Ricardo Zonta. You know, we have to, when you're at the front of the grid, it's a different start altogether.
Well, I remember sitting on the grid one day, and here we go, let's watch the start again. Well, David comes up the inside. He does seem to have a little bit more off the line than anybody else, but look at the two Ferraris. Barrichello falls across from behind Michael Schumacher. Schumacher down the inside of Barrichello as they go into the first turn, and as he goes in, look at Zonta right there behind him. Michael goes round. Then, of course, mayhem behind him, as of course nobody can see a darn thing, and all the dust and smoking rubber. Look, here we go again, another shot. Michael being turfed around by Zonta, and then really he wasn't damaged at all, I think, and then until Trulli hit him. Once Trulli hit him, that did derange his front suspension.
Well, you had Zonta and Trulli were directly behind Michael Schumacher, and of course the three of them came together. So there's another view. Look, you can see just there's Zonta's car, just overruns, tips the back of Schumacher's Ferrari, and Trulli just about tips the back of Barrichello's Ferrari.
Well, obviously Barrichello not wanting getting involved with Michael Schumacher, but Trulli quite happy to give Barrichello one up the rear end as they turn in, saying, come on, let's get a move on here. Here we come again, but it's happened far too far. If we look from Wirtz's car, he can't see Schumacher walking back. That's his championship, not looking good at all right now, but certainly livening it up for the latter part of the season.
There's the green flag. The safety car is in, and racing is back underway, and it's Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard, Mika Salo. That's the top three. And I'm surprised to hear myself saying Mika Salo in third place.
And look at the arrows, right well up there as well.
Well, I mean, what can you say? Schumacher out first corner. Jarno Trulli out from 5th place in the grid. Giancarlo out from 8th place in the grid. There are the three out in that one first corner crash. And Michael Schumacher's face, I think, said everything. He is absolutely, completely destroyed, and also the chance of retaining the championship.
I wonder if there's any damage to the back of Barrichello's car. He's got Jensen Button all over the back of him there, and he didn't look very happy going into that turn. He seemed to be moving around a lot on the rear end.
Well, it did look like at the start that maybe Jarno Trulli's Jordan just tipped the back of Barrichello. Certainly Barrichello went very, very wide over the gravel on the exit of that Castrol corner, Castrol curve. So they filtered their way down through the Jochen curve and into the A1 curve. And there's the gap, 1.175 seconds. Then Salo, 3.1 seconds behind. De La Rosa, fine 4th. Johnny Herbert and the Jaguar up to 5th place. Remember, Herbert started 16th. Rubens Barrichello started 3rd. He's in 6th place. Jensen Button doing a great job for Williams, up to 7th. Ralf Schumacher all the way down in 17th. Of course, he got caught up, Derek, in that whole almost log jam in turn 1.
You may well be wondering, why didn't they red flag it and restart it? Well, of course, they felt that they could quite happily clear the track up, get rid of the cars. There wasn't too much debris on the track without stopping the race and restarting without too much danger. So hence we carry on.
And Pedro de la Rosa is doing a stunning job. He's gone from 4th to 3rd. He's overtaken Mika Salo. And if ever somebody's face told a story, Michael Schumacher's, I don't think there'll be too many people looking for an interview from Schumacher for the next 3 days. look at De La Rosa. I mean, he's storming away from Mika Salo, now in third place.
This is where Hakkinen is absolutely 90, is downhill through here.
Well, look, Di Pedro De La Rosa up to third place. He started from 12th. Coulthard, obviously. Johnny Herbert up from 16th. Rubens Barrichello, of course, he got involved in that first corner shunt. He started third, swum across the front of Michael Schumacher, down to 6th place.
It seemed like anybody that got on the inside actually had quite a good run around on the inside to get away, but on the outside of the corner, of course, they were all nose to tail or nose to nose to nose.
Well, it was a very tight grid anyway. We saw the first 3 cars covered by 0.4 of a second, but then from 4th down to 12th place, it was less than a second. And it was very competitive, of course, with people like Ricardo Zonta so far up for the first time in his Grand Prix career. He's into unknown territory. And the consequence is he's taken out the championship leader. I don't think he'll be driving at Ferrari in the near future. There's a puff of smoke. This we cut back. This is Rubens Barrichello making his way past up into that 5th place. So Barrichello recovering from the start, where he went over the gravel in the Castrol curve. But in the meantime, the 2 McLaren just running away from an arrows. From Pedro De La Rosa, Mika Salo.
Look at the smoke from the back of the Jordan. There he goes on his own oil. He really went off.
And that is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, yes, and he's gone off and he's not going to recover.
No.
He went off on the Ockerman curve. Suddenly the back of the car snapped out. We've seen him do that, Derek, throughout qualifying. Remember, he was on the harder of the 2
Yeah, but John, he had smoke pouring off the back of his car, in my opinion, as he came up to it. There's a lot of smoke from somebody's car, and I reckon he lost it on his own oil, John.
I think you're right. We did get a quick glimpse of Eddie Jordan. Look, 2 cars out. There we see the view again.
There's the smoke, there's the oil on the tyres, and round he goes. The final bit of smoke, of course, was the brakes, but there was certainly, I believe, smoke coming out.
I would say that's something certainly mechanical, if not engine hydraulic, and you can see Frentzen, he's struggling. He's got the car in gear, he's booted it to try and keep the car contained it on the track, but he's got too much momentum.
Look at him, completely off the ground as he goes through into that.
And that is another disastrous weekend for the Jordan team. They are confirming it's an engine fault, engine problem. Now we've got 4 retirements in the space of the 6 laps. Michael Schumacher, Jarno Trulli and Fisichella. Remember that first corner shunt, so they were out for a crash. Now Heinz-Harald Frentzen's out of this corner here with an engine problem that took him out into the gravel.
I can't believe how well De La Rosa's going. Mika Salo, of course, in 3rd place, but what in 4th place, but what a great drive by De La Rosa in 3rd. Absolutely superb to retain that. And here, of course, is Barrichello working over the back of Mika Salo. It's all down to Barrichello to try and get some very valuable points for Ferrari in the Constructors and, of course, for him in the Drivers' Championship.
I think, Derek, you have to imagine that somebody Ferrari might be making a trip down to the Sauber team. Remember, Sauber used the Ferrari-based Petronas engine. And to say, you know, guys, it would help us if we got Barrichello up into 4th as soon as possible and not let those 2 McLarens get away too far, too quickly. There is the top 6, Hakkinen, Coulthard, De La Rosa, Salo, Barrichello and Herbert. Jensen Button 7th, Marc Genet, the Minardi 8th, Wurtz 9th, Heidfeld 10th, Valesi 12th, 11th, and Villeneuve in 12th. He also got held up very badly in that. Zonta, Berti, Ralf Schumacher, Nezakani, Deniz, and Jos Verstappen, the final car, running in 18th place. Are those range spots on the camera? We'll be back with you in a moment while all this action continues in Austria. There's your top 6. Stay with us and join us back at the O1 ring in a moment. In Spielberg in Austria, the Grand Prix of Austria on Fox Sports Net. And Rubens Barrichello has just done what we anticipated, up the inside. That's into the Remus curve. And I think that the man from Ferrari may well have gone down to the man to Sauber, Eric, and said, don't make our life difficult.
Here we go again. A good shot right down the inside. Mika does give him plenty of room to go through. And, of course, Rubens goes away.
And this is Rubens Barrichello moving from 5th up into 4th place. And ahead of him is the Arrow with the Super Tech engine, which is in effect the basis possibly of Renault's return to Formula One. It's a developed engine and it's doing a great job, and a very slippery Arrow is driven superbly by the young Spanish driver Pedro De La Rosa. closer. He debuted in Australia in 1999. And his best Grand Prix so far was 6th at the Nürburgring. He had another great race in the terrible conditions. And he had 6th place and 1 point in the championship.
There's Ralf Schumacher coming in the pit lane. Sorry, John.
Yes.
Rather sad. He was being right back there. He didn't make advantage of that incident at the start. Looks like they're taking something off the front of the car.
It's the front left wing is down. He must have had contact either as a result of that first corner, first lap shunt, or something we have not seen. It's been off camera, but disappointment for Ralf Schumacher. The Schumacher brothers having a pretty torrid day today in total.
Well, the whole weekend's been pretty bad for both of them. Look at these McLarens, absolutely in a class of their own, storming away at the front, but without Schumacher to push them, it's hard to believe that anybody's going to work them over. Max Barrichello is making great inroads into them.
Well, there's a nice little battle going on. Jacques Villeneuve remaining of the BARs. I wonder where his teammate is.
Right,
well, there he is, right behind him.
I was going to say there's two white cars there, John. I didn't like to see it.
Well, I just wondered if that happened to be... I couldn't believe it after the incident when he tipped the back of Michael Schumacher's car. He had to go into the pits and maybe get a nose replaced in that, but he's running directly behind his teammate. And I think when he gets out of the car, he'll probably want to run in straight into the BAR team bus and not see Michael Schumacher for some considerable time. Just had a quick glimpse of the Svengali of the McLaren Formula One team, McLaren Mercedes-Benz. That's Ron Dennis. He's the man that really has been responsible for Mika Häkkinen over the years that he joined the team since 1993. And defending him, saying he was psychologically tired. Now, Derek, have you ever been psychologically tired?
I don't think so, but it's certainly, whatever it was that was wrong with him, he's gone away and had a break from it all, and he's come back firing on all 12 cylinders, so, or 10, should I say. So you can't complain about that. Whatever it was, he's back firing well now.
And the two McLaren Mercedes-Benz running in formation. I'm sure team orders have said, listen, guys, we've got a gift here this afternoon. Stay in position. And I'm quite certain that Ron Dennis will not impose team orders, in spite of the fact that actually David Coulthard is currently second in the championship. And it would be in the interest of the team to let Coulthard, I suspect, take the additional points for winning this race than having Mika Häkkinen.
Well, I think it'll all depend on what happens to the pit stops, John. Ralf Schumacher has just come in the pits yet again, so he has more problems with his car than we first saw. But I don't think he'll be sorry either. He's had a lurid weekend, as we said before. Jenson Button having a slightly better weekend there. It looks like they wheeled it away, so that's enough is enough.
Well, that's disappointment indeed. And Ralf Schumacher, I don't understand what went wrong with Williams BMW this weekend. They've been superb pretty much throughout the entire season. Here they just didn't get the car to work, and Jenson Button out-qualified Ralf Schumacher just by 1 place, but nonetheless, that 1 place was important.
Well, Button's in 7th place currently with Marc Genet in the Minardi right behind him in 8th. Absolutely amazing. And Alexander Wurz there in 8th place, there right behind as well. Sorry, 9th place is Wurz, and John Alesi 10th.
And for Ralf Schumacher, he didn't finish the race here last year either, so Austria not doing really the younger of the Schumacher brothers very many favours. Just an interesting thing, Derek, in terms of stats. For David Coulthard, he has started his 100th career Grand Prix. He's won 9 of those, and in fact 3 of them have come this year. And he now eclipses that great 3-time Scottish world champion, Jackie Stewart, who only competed in 99 Grand Prix. Great record for Stewart, for Coulthard, a Scot. And I'm sure Jackie Stewart will be one of the first to walk up to him and say, congratulations, David, that's a burden I've carried since 1973. It's now yours.
We just heard that Ralf Schumacher is actually still sitting in his car as they're working on the front suspension, despite it being in the garage. Let's like to point out it's not a good place to be. There we go, it's one of the Prost. It looks like a lazy going down the inside of Wurz, then loses it. Wurz goes back, thank you very much, down the inside.
Well, that was one of your favourite overtaking spots, Derek, and it is possible, but it's difficult. And you can see what happened. He overrun the corner, and the other car was able to cut back.
Here we go again. Alesi down the inside. Is he going to... Yes, he pushes him out. But he got it too sideways, you see. He lost time. If only he could have come in a bit neater than that. And Alexander says, thanks, lad, I'm back in front again of you.
Some of the guests in the Jordan team pits. Jordan always managed to bring along a few celebrities to each of the Grand Prix. Sometimes it's from sport, sometimes it's from the world of show business, and other times it's just some of Eddie's closest and most personal friends. Mika Häkkinen clearly absolutely back on the top of his form. And that sort of period where he went into a rather sort of a dull patch, one might say, is behind him.
Well, that was riding with Rubens Barrichello, as you saw, and he's some 15 seconds behind. He's losing half a second to 3/4 second a lap to the McLaren, so he's not making inroads on that. But he's still 6 seconds behind De La Rosa, who you see right here. Fine piece of driving. I bet Arrows cannot believe this.
Well, I think the team has done a great job this year. They've got 2 young drivers. They're not particularly high in anybody's choice of driver for the future. But De La Rosa, very, very strong indeed in a couple of races this year. And Jos Verstappen, the veteran from the Benetton days back in '94. We got a glimpse into the Williams garage as the team work on that front suspension. I suppose they can treat the remaining Grand Prix really as a glorified test session to try and work out why their cars weren't competitive here at all.
Villeneuve right behind Nick Heidfeld. It's about time he did something a little bit about Nick and got by him with Zonta behind him as well. Zonta's not going to play any games with Villeneuve. Here, of course, we have the side of Wirtz, and Alesi still going hammer and tongs, going along the top straightaway up to 180 miles an hour in 6th gear. Let's see if Alesi has another look down the inside, is he? He's dodging to one side, has a look. No, he doesn't want to get that chance of losing it. It's a pretty darn fast corner there, 115 miles an hour as they go through the first part.
And, of course, it's a battle. When he comes alongside Wirtz, as they try to fight their way down through the middle of the track. He's still behind him. It's a battle between the 2 engine manufacturers. The Supertech engine, which is effectively a Renault engine in the Benetton, and in the Prost you've got the Peugeot V10. And Prost have been complaining, and very publicly too, Derek, about the lack of commitment and performance that Peugeot have been giving the Prost team. So as we watch this continuing battle, and there is Alain Prost in the pits, and there we look at the top 6. Join us back here in Austria, the A1 ring, in a moment. The National Sports Report nightly at 10 and 12. It's the all-new National Sports Report, the show that gives you a complete wrap-up of all the day's sports news, with the internet interaction, scores and highlights, opinions and analysis. The National Sports Report nightly at 10 and 12 only on Fox Sports Net. Check your local listings for the start time in your area.
Well, you were saying all that, John. Here's Alesi going by Alexander Wirtz moments ago. Clear bit of road this time. Much tighter corner. Gets in there well, and he's away. Well done, John, just at turn 1. That's it. Now he's going to pull away. I must say, we haven't seen... There we go, another shot of it. Haven't seen too much overtaking by the Prost this season. It's a pity it has to be on Wirtz, who's the local hero, or was. And this is they're looking into the Benetton pit. They're not too happy about that because they've dropped down now from 9th to 10th position.
Well, there's another couple of drivers out on the track. In fact, they're both Brazilians, one's Pedro Diniz, the other Ricardo Zonta. And the stewards are analysing, I think, film of that start, that first corner incident. And it could be that both drivers might make a... Well, there we see Zonta, 10-second stop-go penalty. So he's been given the penalty for his responsibility, Ricardo Zonta. And also, we just also heard now that Diniz is going to have the same kind of punishment for that involvement in the first corner. Here we look back at that corner on the first lap. Ricardo Zonta. Ooh. So he'll be given the message via the radio link. It'll also be a visual from the pit lane. At the end of this lap, I would think that he and the car directly behind Pedro Diniz will be into the pits to serve out that 10-second stop-go penalty. As a consequence, there is confirmation. And Ralf Schumacher, having had work carried out on the front suspension of his Williams BMW, goes back out on track, and it'll just turn into a test session.
That's Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR. Right behind him is Zonta, but of course you must point out that when Zonta goes for a 10-second penalty, it's not only 10 seconds. He has to go in the pit lane at 55 miles an hour and come out at 55 miles an hour, a long pit lane, and he's going to lose a lot of time.
Well, Jacques Villeneuve, he won here in 97, and Jacques Villeneuve won an awful lot of races. Unfortunately, none of them have occurred in the BAR, which is now powered by the Honda, and a lot of speculation about his future. Is he going to stay with the team? Is he going to move to Benetton? Well, Pedro Diniz, the first of those two stop-go penalty, we see him drop in, and also Zonta. In fact, both have dropped in at the same point. And they've got to get down to that speed limit, and it's interminable, Derek, the length of the time pit lane.
And they cannot do any work on the car, of course, while it's in. They can't refuel it, they can't replace tyres. He just sits there, and it seems an eternity, as you said.
Well, remember Peter Windsor talking to Ricardo Zonta. Zonta confirming how good it was for his career to be in the third row of the grid. And, well, that was certainly part of the exercise this weekend. And while we were in the commercial break, we also saw Jos Verstappen in his Arrow Supertech. He came into the pits, retired. He actually ran off track, I think, as a consequence of what was being reported as a gearbox problem. So one of the two Arrows, but the other one running still very, very strongly indeed. It's now 19.3 seconds behind race leader Mika Häkkinen in third place. And there we see our top six. Fourth career Grand Prix in Austria. The 98 winner Mika Häkkinen. 99, of course, a little bit more problematic with that second corner tap from behind from his teammate. Jenson Button still in seventh, and all the way down Villeneuve in 12th. So let's look at the start. Here we got the replay. Now watch the white car you can see behind taps the back of the Ferrari. That's Michael Schumacher. Then Trulli gets involved, and is Sommer involved. Barrichello has to go way, way out onto the beach to avoid all that. Michael now explaining to Jean Todt, and well, actually, yes, that was a fairly big impact. You're right, Michael. We even felt it here. So out of the race, we've got Michael Schumacher, Jarno Trulli, Giancarlo Fisichella, Heinz Harald Frentzen in the Jordan, and Jos Verstappen in the Arrows. A disaster for Michael Schumacher. Of course, those 10 points for a win, which he had hoped he might scoop up here this afternoon. He's got no chance. But Coulthard is in second place in the championship, but also he's second place in this race. So whether McLaren are going to implement team orders, they say they won't until one of their two drivers has no chance of being a contender in the championship. But while both drivers are in contention, he's going to leave it to them on the track.
What I find difficult to understand is why David Coulthard isn't hanging on the tail of Mika Häkkinen, so that when they do have their pit stops, there is that possibility that Häkkinen's pit stop might be a second or so longer, allowing David into the lead, but David is 5 seconds behind.
I think Mika Häkkinen has just been absolutely the old Mika Häkkinen, and particularly those final two corners. That's where the real advantage that Häkkinen has. We're looking at that first corner of the two. That's the Jochenrindt curve, and then they come into the A1 curve. Häkkinen has been in a class of his own throughout the weekend, and that's where the 0.3 of a second, almost 0.4 of a second between Häkkinen and Coulthard was generally being gained. Third place, and a wonderful third place for the young Spanish driver Pedro de la Rosa. And really a team that is very much a part of the middle field. And looking down, you see the Ferrari team. There's the gap between De La Rosa minus 5.7, and that'll be coming down. I'm sure Rubens Barrichello will be continually easing into the advantage that De La Rosa currently has in third place. But this will be a race, Derek, between the young Spaniard and the young Brazilian.
Well, John, he isn't actually. I have to say, De La Rosa is not losing any time to Barrichello at all. Barrichello's pulling out on him. I was going to say whether there's any damage to that Ferrari because of that incident. As Mika Häkkinen goes by, one of the Minardis, well out of the way he goes. I'm not going to interfere with him.
Well, Metsakani, I think, couldn't wait to get out of the way quickly enough, and quite rightly too, and good work from the young driver in the Minardi to make sure that he does use his mirrors. When you're on your own, sometimes you can fall asleep, and clearly he was wide awake. Well, information going out to make a Häkkinen shift in revs, and I suspect that they're looking at just keep the revs down and maybe short shifting, Derek.
Yeah, certainly. I would think they've knocked a few maybe 500 revs off that 17.5 or 17.4 and said make it like 17,000, probably what he's instructed to do.
Well, there's no pressure whatsoever on the McLaren Mercedes-Benz team, and the most important thing right now for the team, we might think it's the Drivers' Championship, Derek, but really it's about the Team Championship, which Ferrari are currently leading by 6 points from the McLaren team. Now, there's 16 points available to McLaren currently, and that would give them an enormous advantage over Ferrari, in spite of Rubens Barrichello, who's currently in 4th place and with 3 points available. So let's look at those constructors' points as we came in. Ferrari leading on 88 points from 82 from McLaren. Benetton down in 3rd place in 18. Williams 4th, 17. Jordan 5th and 11. And, of course, BAR down in 6th place and 9. But it's the battle at the front, and McLaren and Ferrari have been really struggling throughout the season. It's not gone one way or the other, not as much as the Drivers' Championship has gone. So 16 points in offer for McLaren is a gift horse they will not want to turn down. Ron Dennis's thoughts, we saw them at the top of our show, thinking that when the tough get going, they're going to whatever it is anyway. Ron made the comment, and certainly it might be easier, as he suggested, to come from behind and claw back, both in terms of drivers' victories and in terms of the team's championship. And certainly they've come back with a vengeance here this afternoon. All of help, of course, was helped by Ricardo Zonta just having that unintentional tip into the rear of championship leader Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. So as we go to break, let's have a quick look and see who our top 6 are. Stay with us here in Austria. We'll be back with you in a minute as we go through our top 6. On Fox Sports Net, and just if anybody happened to come in and not catch the start of the race, Michael Schumacher, the World Championship leader, was taken out in the first corner. Ricardo Zonta starting behind him on the grid, overshot the corner, tipped the back of the championship leader's Ferrari into retirement. And then also involved in that were Jarno Trulli in the Jordan, Giancarlo Fisichella in the Benetton. We've also seen Heinz-Harald Frentzen retire with an engine problem, and Jos Verstappen likewise with a gearbox problem in the Arrows. And there the Ferrari team, and that gap, Derek, you pointed out a few seconds ago, it really is pretty static. It's maybe a 1/10 of a second here or there. Barrichello is not making headway in towards catching Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows. So far this season, 10 starts, 1 podium, 5 podiums, 1 win. 1 pole, not 1 pole. He wants it to be a win, believe me. That pole, of course, came at the British Grand Prix in Silverstone in a very mixed qualifying session.
John Alesi in the pits.
So we're looking at possibly this being a 2-stop race for the Prost team. Most teams we anticipate is going to be a 1-stop. That would be between laps 42 and laps 44. We're on lap 24, so looks like 2 stops. And it looks like Alesi is the first of those.
Michael Schumacher's comment just now was it is a pity that exuberant young drivers can ruin a race.
Well, I think that's a very measured thought from the World Championship leader. And, you know, it's tough on a young kid like Zonta getting his first almost front of the grid position in qualifying, and just made a minute misjudgment under braking, but that misjudgment took out the world champion leader and a lot of other cars, and in effect has gifted the Grand Prix at this point to the 2 McLaren Mercedes-Benz of race leader Mika Häkkinen. So we look back and Mika, this is a replay of Häkkinen a few laps ago. Something.
Here we go.
It was
slipping down. No. Whoa. Oh dear, oh dear.
Well, that's Ricardo Zonta
getting a piece of his own medicine there, one has to admit.
Well, that was Mazzacani, because Mazzacani is running 14th, Zonta and 15th. Remember, Zonta and Diniz had to make a stop-go penalty for their involvement in that first lap, first corner incident. And Mazzacani shut the door quite rightly, because it is a race for position, even though that might be 14th position.
Well, the fastest lap was a 1 minute 11 last year. It was a 1 minute 12 by Mika Häkkinen, so well under the record from last year. But to me, one of the most interesting things is seeing just how well De La Rosa's going. We're not talking much about him because he's doing such a splendid job, but his best result in his career has been 6th place in Australia in the European Grand Prix this year at the Nürburgring. So, you know, he's really up there doing an incredibly, mature job.
Yeah, and I'm very impressed with De La Rosa. Comes out of doing Formula 3000 in Japan, where he won a championship a couple of years ago. We're on lap 27, and so far we've only seen one car make a pit stop for fuel and tyres. That was Prost, Jean Alesi. But we anticipate, I think, Derek, that the majority of this field are going to stop somewhere around laps 42 to 44, 45, depending on the amount of fuel on board. It'll be a one-stop race for the majority of this field. What we weren't certain about was what Ferrari were going to do. Certainly no sign of Rubens Barrichello coming in, so we have to assume that they were also going to go for that one-stop strategy.
Luciano Berti, this young man who only came in yesterday. He's the two-time British Formula 3 champion and Jaguar's test driver, and that really is his only claim to fame. He hasn't got a great history behind him, one has to say, but he's stood in very well for Eddie Irvine, considering he didn't get in the car till yesterday morning. He had to fly in his helmet and his overalls from their test truck. So he's doing a superb job, far better than I'm sure he anticipated when the race started, starting from the pit lane. Remember, he's in Johnny Herbert's car, and he's a little bit taller than Johnny. In fact, nearly everybody is.
Well, as I said earlier in the show, it's a vertical learning curve for the young Brazilian Berti, and doing a great job. In fact, I mean, out there for the first time, didn't get to run the car until Saturday morning, and in fact lost time on Saturday morning, running currently in 12th position. And really, it's just a question of track time. He just needs more and more track time, which is what I think we're looking at Ralf Schumacher. He spent a long time in the pits having damage to the front suspension repaired. The team have decided to send him out into what I suspect is little more than an extended test session. As race leader Mika Häkkinen goes on to lap 29, we believe. And you know, that whole Häkkinen thing during that sort of early middle part of the first half of the season just seemed like he was in a different planet, but now he's back on Earth and leading this race convincingly.
Well, he did say that they had set the car up differently for him, and he wasn't really very happy with it. And when they really analysed how it had been set up, he wasn't really to his liking. So they've altered it back, and he's now much happier with the whole thing.
And that's a strange situation, because ironically, it's always been David Coulthard, Häkkinen's teammate, had struggled to get the car to suit him. And we've seen Coulthard run strongly, win 3 Grand Prix so far this year, to just the one that Häkkinen has won, which of course was back in Spain earlier this year.
And I think at this point, John, one has to say that the great John Watson had his first victory and the only ever win, I think I'm right in saying, for Penske in the 1976 Austrian Grand Prix. But be brief, John.
I will be brief, but I'm blushing profusely. It was, in fact, my first win in this circuit, 1976. And significantly, it was for Roger Penske, his first Grand Prix win as well. It came 1 year after the tragedy of 1975, and there is the top 3. Jacques Lafitte was second, the late Gunnar Nielsen in the Lotus was third, and it was a very special day for me, probably more special for Roger, both poignantly, but because it was the day that I shaved off the beard I had. I promised Roger I'd shave my beard off when we won a Grand Prix. I didn't need him to hold me to my word. I took it off as soon as possible. I've been down to shave it for quite some considerable time, but couldn't be seen to be maybe influenced by Roger. In the meantime, back to the year 2000. We've got a Grand Prix going on, and Mika Häkkinen some 14 seconds now ahead of teammate David Coulthard in second place, and a further 23 seconds behind Coulthard is Pedro de la Rosa, doing a great job for the Aero Supertech team. Rubens Barrichello in fourth place, 3.6 seconds behind. De La Rosa is not making progress. I don't know what's gone wrong with Ferrari or Barrichello this afternoon, but I mean, to have to go into a debriefing after a Grand Prix and say you finished third to fourth behind an Arrows is going to be a tough day for Barrichello.
McLaren are getting pretty wired up about Häkkinen and not backing off. They want him to slow down a bit to conserve the car, because, as we all know, they have had quite a few reliability problems this year. They wanted to play it cool, as there's no need to rush. He's only got his teammate behind, and he, of course, is some 14 seconds is David Coulthard. So maybe David Coulthard has a problem, and they're worrying that Mika Häkkinen might have the same problem inbuilt in his car. We will only know later.
Well, the team are clearly very anxious that both cars should finish first and second, as Alexander Wurz just allows Mika Häkkinen, the race leader, to put a lap on the Austrian. Wurz currently in 9th place. So here is Alexander's career in Austria. 98, finished 9th, 99, finished 5th. And really desperate to get a good result to convince the Formula One world that well, I am a driver of worth. I can certainly bring a lot of funding to the team. He's got sponsorship, substantial sponsorship to bring to a team, and many of those teams I think would welcome the Austrian in spite of his tall 6'1" frame. It's difficult to get them into a Formula One car, but with that kind of money, miracles are performed.
Well, he obviously is. Look at Genet in 8th place, absolutely magnificent for Minardi, absolutely magnificent. But of course, you know, Wirtz did show such tremendous promise in his early year or two, and I believe he's just not getting the run of the mill at Benetton. He's not getting the brakes. They're not giving him the cars.
So let's look at our top 6. It's Hakkinen, Coulthard, De La Rosa, Barrichello, Salo, Herbert. 31 laps have been competed of 71. Stay with us. We're back in a minute in Austria. Fox Sportsnet looking at Pedro De La Rosa, and he's in trouble. He's in the pit lane. We saw just momentarily a puff of smoke from the back of the car, and that signifies an end to a very, very fine drive indeed from the young Spanish driver, running 3rd place, strongly in 3rd place, keeping Ferrari of Barrichello at bay. Disappointment, Derek, indeed.
Yes, it certainly is. It looks like it is terminal. They're taking it as a pit stop, are they? Just going to check the car now. Very much. He's obviously seen a lot of his instrumentation, and that is it.
Just suddenly a puff of smoke came from the left rear corner of the car. We don't know whether it's an engine problem directly or whether it's external, such as oil systems, hydraulic systems. Clearly the Arrows team have decided that it is a terminal problem, and the car is going to be pushed away into the garage, pending what were certainly very high hopes of getting a first podium finish for Pedro De La Rosa. There's Leifeder sidling his way through the back markers, but there we see De La Rosa as he comes out of the Castrol curve, and that engine suddenly erupts, and he just cruised the car back to the pits, and was pushed into the garage. And a sad end to a very, very fine performance indeed from the Spanish driver Pedro De La Rosa. Johnny Herbert having an afternoon's work, currently running in 6th place, just behind Mika Salo. Salo, good job in qualifying, started the race in 9th place, now running in 5th place. He was the super sub last year alongside Eddie Irvine when Schumacher was recovering from his broken leg.
Well, they will all benefit, of course, from De La Rosa pulling out. So you've suddenly got Johnny Herbert in 5th place and Salo in 4th place. Absolutely superb.
Looking into the garage of the Arrows team, De La Rosa covered by press. The journalists wanted to know what happened then, Pedro. I think it was fairly evident that it was fairly terminal. Hakkinen just taking it easy through the Castrol curve, trying not to overrun into the back of the Jaguar. Now picks up the momentum up the hill, and he should have an easy pass down the inside there. We see Jaguar just backs off, allows Hakkinen to take the inside line. Job done.
Look at the acceleration of that McLaren Mercedes engine. Here we go again as Hakkinen goes down the inside of the Jag. Super. Right down the inside, but the Jaguar did give him plenty of room to get through, one has to say. Miko's get right up on the curb, so he gives the other guy plenty of room in case he decides to come across in front of him.
There's Mika Hakkinen. He's red hot here this afternoon, and track temperature is also going up. It's up to 90 degrees right now. So any fear of the cloud base, which did look awfully low at the start of the Grand Prix, it's now lifting and clearing up, and that track temperature is getting higher. We're still waiting to see the bulk of the runners make that one and only pit stop. He now comes up to put a lap on 4th place Mika Salo. I mean, what is going on here this afternoon? 4th place lapped, I mean, not even at halfway in this Grand Prix.
That's when you realise how much you need Schumacher and the Ferrari out there, I'm afraid to say, and obviously a wired-up Jordan, which we don't have at the moment. Here we go again. Mika pulls out of the slipstream, which, of course, is still used these days. Gets on those McLaren brakes. We saw how wonderful the brakes were in the Grand Prix in France 2 weeks ago, and he goes through turn 1. And there's Mika's wife, Aria.
Well, she won't have to give him a bit of a talking to this weekend. He's back at the level we expect to see Mika Hakkinen. In the meantime, Alexander Wirtz, we haven't seen it, but he's had a quick off, a little quick spin. Wirtz running in 8th place, and well, Nick Heidfeld very close behind him, just 1 point. 4 seconds away. But there is our now third place man, that's Rubens Barrichello.
Second gear. To 185 miles an hour across the top of the circuit as one of the Mazzacani, one of the Minardis comes in. Remember, there is a speed limit in the pit lane. It doesn't look like it there. De La Rosa apparently had a gearbox problem, which is a great pity because he did have a stunning drive going for him.
And Derek, that's the same retirement that Verstappen, Jos Verstappen, the teammate of De La Rosa, had. So both arrows out with gearbox problems. Mazzacani still out there pounding away, running 15th and last place in this battle again. Jacques Villeneuve fighting young Nick Heidfeld. Heidfeld doing a very, very strong job indeed. And what happened to Villeneuve?
He got well out of shape going through there. Well out of shape. I thought I saw a puff of smoke from the back of his car just now, but he certainly got out of shape there. Let's not forget Marc Genet in 7th place, and he's staying ahead of Heidfeld and Villeneuve. So maybe there is something wrong with Villeneuve's car.
Well, that's an opportunity for the teams further down the grid to pick up the odd stray point. And, you know, Genet running in 7th place. He only needs Button, Herbert or Salo, with 6th, 5th and 4th respectively, to drop out or have a poor pit stop, and you can have a Minardi scoring its first point of the season. Well, Minardi and Jaguar have not scored. We couldn't get to talk to De La Rosa. He was so upset he just went straight across to his motorhome without saying a word to anybody. I can quite understand it. His best result to then had been 6th. Here we go, Häkkinen's coming in next lap. Just 1 lap over, or 2 laps over halfway, lap 37. And here was De La Rosa running for a good-looking 3rd place, although I must admit Barrichello was gradually catching him up. The McLaren Mercedes team preparing for the race leader, Mika Häkkinen, to come in. Lap 37's fairly early in that one-stop window. Mazzacani came in a lap and a bit earlier. So as he comes through the Jochen curve, he peels off, comes in almost as quick as he would go into the A1 curve, then flat out until he reaches that white line there. He must get the car down to 55 miles an hour, otherwise he'll be penalised.
A bit longer than they thought. Looked like he couldn't get the fuel filler off right at the very end there. Nonetheless, it won't really affect him. David Coulthard there in the front of your picture takes the lead, but of course he hasn't stopped yet. And he was some 14 seconds behind. But Mika did have a 10-second stop, which you'd normally expect to do something between the 8 and 9-second stops for a fueling of a one-stop strategy.
And that's not the first time we've seen the McLaren team having a problem with getting the fuel connector detached from the car. You could hear Häkkinen already had the car in gear, the revs were screaming. He was bursting to get back out on track as soon as possible, and he probably lost the best part of a second and a half, while the team just held them there to make sure that everything was correct. But at the speed Häkkinen's been running, it'll not be a problem. And Coulthard makes his stop. There was sufficient gap between them prior to the stops to see him there. And that's the Jordan team. What they're doing.
3 Brits in the top 6, John. I can't quite believe that.
I think that was. Do you think that was that Brian Adams?
It may well have been, actually. I'm not a great sort of fan necessarily.
Well, EJ, of course, is a great rock and roller.
Man,
and Brian Adams is high on the list of his wife Marie's top 5 fave rockers. Stay with us here on Fox Sportsnet in Austria. We'll be back in a moment for the remaining pit stops in this afternoon's Austrian Grand Prix.
His brief career with Ferrari, 12 months later at this same circuit, is Mika Salo again, showing his talent.
Well, we look and see as the cross exits out of the pit lane. We're in the middle of this pit stop sequence. So David Coulthard still currently leading by 9.8 seconds from teammate Mika Häkkinen. Rubens Barrichello still in 3rd place. He's a further 20 seconds behind Häkkinen. A little bit of loss of grip coming out of the corner there, Derek.
Well, it does happen towards the, you know, they got quite a heavy fuel load on, and that was Nick Heidfeld had just come out of the pits there. I'm not sure. He had just come out, but I don't know if that was him, but he could well get a bit of slippering on that first couple of laps, John, sliding around.
David Coulthard leading this race, gets the signal to come in. He's on lap 41. We saw just 4 laps earlier that Mika Häkkinen, who had led the race from the start, came in, so quite a big difference in terms of strategy and fuel loads both drivers were carrying. There's David Coulthard's career card, 4th career Grand Prix of Austria, best finish, 2nd, 97, 98, 99. Now, you can't do an awful lot better than that other than win the thing, can you?
Well, that's what he'd like to do, I have to admit.
I'm quite certain he came here brimming full of confidence after that landing Grand Prix in France 2 weekends ago, and he went eyeball to eyeball and a few other things with Michael Schumacher, and the confidence that Coulthard has got, and you can see just the way he's driving, he's just a changed driver. And he's now had to come back and deal with this man who is really on form here for, I would say, the first time this season. Mika Häkkinen renewing the kind of domination that really has seen his trademark, his signature over the last seasons. As DC into the pits.
Seconds quicker.
Yeah.
Great sound there as they're winding up that V10.
But Mika Häkkinen has just regained the lead as David Coulthard makes his way down the pit lane. It's still on the speed limit button, and you get off it, you climb uphill. It's a very tight right-hand exit. Very easy to clip the barrier on the exit, but you come back on track. So it's Mika Häkkinen back in the lead. David, oh, 2 Prost. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Nick Heidfeld, John Alesi, and, well, who's at fault in that one?
Well, we saw them getting sideways just now. We've talked about how Heidfeld was sliding over. Heidfeld had just come in for his pit stop. That is not going to make John Alesi or Heidfeld popular with Alain Prost, or the sponsors, or the manufacturers. What major... Here we go, look at this. Oh, dear, what a silly move that was. That was really the guy behind. I mean, just should not have made that move through, try to get through on the inside. He just didn't have the... It looked like he had the room there. Then just look at this. And straight across in front of him is Heidfeld. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Well, we're seeing Heidfeld run a very strong race today. Here he is, Heidfeld on the nearest your camera. And he looks like he gives John Alesi enough room, and then he sweeps right across to take his line as if he was never there. My goodness, look at the mess he made of the front suspension on that car.
And not only have they made a mess of the car, they've left an awful lot of shards of carbon fibre on the track. Some of it will be on the racing line. A lot of it is going to be blown away. And there's the yellow flag out. And Prost, Alain Prost, what have I got to do? I mean, I've had a season which has almost been a nightmare. And there, my 2 drivers just drive themselves off the track. I mean, they were racing all the way down the field. It was 13th and 14th place, but that was due to the overlap during the pit stops. As the young Brazilian Luciano Berti, he goes back out on track after his one and only stop of the afternoon. And I reckon by the time Berti finishes this Grand Prix, Derek, he'll be about ready to start another one.
He's doing all right, John. They had a very long pit stop for him, but probably because he's not used to these pit stops, he probably hasn't rehearsed too many pit stops. So, of course, they had to be cautious. They didn't stall it. So they didn't want to set him alight as he goes out. Look at Häkkinen coming down for those last 2 turns.
Don't let's forget, Derek, that my fellow countryman, Eddie Irvine, he's sitting back in the UK watching this Grand Prix somewhere on television. Now, he should have been here, and we know that he had these severe stomach cramps. He went back to England on Friday night as we watch Marc Genet and Minardi come back out. And Eddie Irvine will be back, we believe, for the German Grand Prix, but there is still no confirmation of what the problem Irvine has. They said, look, take it easy for a couple of days, come back and see us, we'll have another look at you. And here's Barrichello.
Rather brief, I'm afraid to say. Or it'd be nice to see in a full lap of the Ferrari. Here we are, back again. close shot of Ross Brawn, technical director at Ferrari. No doubt very disappointed with this weekend's performance.
Mika Salo on the Sauber comes in. There's one and only stop this afternoon. Sauber team doing a strong job. Salo running in 4th place. Mika Salo so far this season's got 3 points. And if he finishes in 4th, he get a further 3. His career, and we go back to Barrichello.
It'd be nice to see him go around after the other bit of the circuit. We keep seeing him go that hill.
Well, the amount of on-board offer these days is variable, but here in Austria, the pictures that we've been getting throughout the weekend have been absolutely magnificent. The director really is a Formula One fan.
Ferrari could well be going in this lap. Barrichello coming in for a refuel and tyres at any moment.
There's not really very much that Ferrari have been able to do once Michael Schumacher was out of the race. Barrichello, of course, got involved in that first corner, first lap incident, and it's more a case of consolidation and pick up the points for 3rd place, which, of course, for the team and driver are 4 points.
Quite interesting to watch there. Barrichello's probably coming in this lap, of how Barrichello was following a full McLaren with an empty Ferrari.
Barrichello in the pits. Wonderful noise. Derek, it could be a V12 in reality. We know it's a V10.
There's something about those massive sort of multi-V engines, absolutely wonderful sound, isn't it? It always seems to be Ferrari.
And it was a good stop for the Ferrari team, of course, because they went slightly deeper into the race. They stopped in lap 46 rather than we saw Hakkinen in lap 37, so consequently there's a little bit less fuel that goes in, and the pit stops today are determined by the amount of fuel that a car has to carry. So that's why we saw an 8-second stop from the Ferrari team and slightly longer for Coulthard, and again that bit longer again for Mika Hakkinen.
Well, Button should be coming in soon. He's in 4th place. Incredible run by him. When you consider he was fairly well down the grid at the start, one has to say he was down there in 18th place on the grid, and he's up to 4th thanks to that incident, of course, on the first corner.
And this is not going to do his career too much harm, as his drive is under threat, and Williams from Pablo Montoya. Stay with us on Fox Sports Net. We'll be back in Austria in a moment. 17 seconds ahead of teammate David Coulthard. And while we were off air, we saw young Brit Jenson Button, who was in 4th place, make his one stop for service, tyre change, fuel this afternoon. 9.1 seconds from the Williams team, pretty much. I think, Derek, within the ballpark of what we've been saying throughout the afternoon.
And Jacques Villeneuve's just come into the pit. He and Wirtz are the only two that I'm aware of that haven't stopped yet.
And
there's Wirtz coming in.
As you said, he pops in.
So both the two guys, so that'll alter the top 6 just a tad. Button was behind them both, but will probably end up being, well, he'll be ahead of Wirtz anyway. Probably be 5th.
Pretty reasonable stop from Benetton, 8.4 seconds. Again, that slightly lighter fuel load giving Wirtz the shorter stop time in the pit lane. Jacques Villeneuve also came in at the same time. Sadly, we only got to see the pit stop of Alexander Wirtz, but it is Austria. Wirtz is Austrian, and any opportunity to show your national driver on TV, well, that's the nature of post-broadcasting. Shame you're not going to have an American driver in the American Grand Prix, Derek, isn't it?
Well, they will do one day. I just think there's got to be a much better system for bringing on young American drivers into the Formula One field, and I think we should be working on that in America.
In the meantime, Häkkinen still leads as an implacable Frank Williams sits and watches the screen as he's hoping that when everything shakes itself out after the pit stops, that Jenson Button, who had been ahead of Villeneuve and Wirtz, will regain that 4th position. Here we're on board with 3rd place Barrichello. Stunning shots from Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari. It is the only Ferrari out here at this point in the Grand Prix, and there's a reason why. And it occurred literally seconds after the start. The two McLarens in the front row, they pull away. Barrichello pulls across the front of Michael Schumacher, but look behind that white car, Ricardo Zonta in the BAR Honda. He tags the back of Michael Schumacher. Jarno Trullo's involved in it as well. Giancarlo Fisichella. There's Barrichello running very wide. That's part of the reason why Ferrari. But Michael Schumacher's race is over within 500 yards of the start. There is the race summary. Leader Häkkinen, laps led 47-51. 2 lead changes basically because of pit stops. Cars remaining 14, and the fastest lap by Mika Häkkinen, 1:11.837. Stunning drive from the Finnish driver. Out of the race, Schumacher, Trulli, Fisichella in that crash in the first corner. Frentzen, engine problem, we saw that. Verstappen, gearbox problem. And in fact, his teammate De La Rosa also out with a gearbox problem. Heidfeld and a lazy. Well, I tell you what, it'll be to bed without any tea for those two boys tonight. That was unnecessary, and Alain Prost will probably just want to give up right now.
As he worked further Heidfeld's future with the Prost team, even if he wanted it, as Mika Häkkinen sneaks down the inside. But Ralf Schumacher's come in the pits for the 5th time this race. Poor Ralph's having a terrible time, but as you said, John, they're probably just working on trying to get the car right, trying to find out why it hasn't been working this weekend.
Well, they'll probably have a cup of coffee and a piece of that delicious Austrian Sacher cake, which is very rich, very chocolatey. It is really just a disappointing afternoon for the Williams team and Ralf Schumacher. But for the young Jenson Button, he's actually in 5th place, just 1.5 seconds behind the much more experienced and very combative Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR Honda. And there is the signal going out from the Sauber team for Mika Salo. He's sort of rather lost out in that pit stop shuffle, running in 4th place, now down into 6th place behind Villeneuve and Button. So a bit of a hurry up, I think, coming from the Sauber team. Johnny Herbert just outside the points in the Jaguar in 7th place. A lot of speculation, Derek, about Johnny's future, not with Jaguar, one presumes, because Dario Franchitti looks like he's being penciled in. Are we going to see Johnny Herbert racing over here in Kart?
Well, Johnny has been a magnificent driver over the years, I have to say, but he had that terrible crash at Brands Hatch in Formula 3000 before his Formula 1 career, and he really he staggered back a year or so later, but it's been a real tough grind for him, and I believe you lose, or he has lost that little bit of edge that he had in those early days. But he's had a long, excellent career, great time with Benetton, won a few Grand Prix, so he's had a great career nonetheless.
Well, he had his debut in Brazil in 1989. That was really almost too soon after that almost crippling injury he had in Brands Hatch in 88. 155 races today, and that's 3 more than me, Derek. He's won 3 of them, and best championship position was 4th in 95 in Benetton. So Johnny really just looking to play out, I think, the rest of the season in the Jaguar team and move on to something where he will feel more happy and hopefully a lot more successful.
There's a real old dice going on here, because you got Button followed by Salo, and this is the dice of the race at the present time. Salo, of course, lost out a lot, as you said, John, in that pit stop shuffle. He was ahead of this guy, of Jenson Button, and here he is really giving the work over. And Johnny Herbert right behind Mika Salo. So there's really one heck of a dice going on here for 5th place.
Well, in fact, the Williams team are preparing for Button to come in. Apparently, he must have gone off track somewhere, and looks like they've got a fresh set of rubber. Whether he damaged a tyre or he thinks he's got a puncture or something, But clearly a real battle, 7th, 6th and 5th. And one thing's for sure, if Button does come into the pits, he's going to go down behind Johnny Herbert.
Yeah, but if he, you know, he might try and hold out. I know he's doing the same times, mind you. But of course, if he has damaged that nose and he's about to, you know, he's finding it very hard handling, well, he'll have to go in. But he's going to lose those good, valuable positions. Here he's stayed out, so he's persevering. We often do that.
And you know what's even more amazing, just out of camera shot from behind Johnny Herbert, you got Marc Genet in 8th place, and he's really running at a speed which is virtually identical to these 3 cars, 5th, 6th and 7th.
Well, Button's car obviously is reasonably all right. He called them about his nose, told them that he had a problem with it when he went off, had an off-road excursion. But he doesn't want to stop, and we all know that feeling, John, when you don't want to go in unless you really have to. And if the car is handling all right, even if the nose is damaged, as long as he isn't losing any time, we'll go for it. There they are with the extra nose, waiting for him to come in, but he isn't in just yet.
Well, the critical thing for Williams is if they can stay in 5th place, they'll get 2 points for that. Those 2 points would put them ahead of Benetton in the Constructors' Championship. As we look at Jacques Villeneuve, there it is. That's lots of bits of carbon fibre. But Jenson Button, he just drives the car. How he must head off that tyre barrier.
Brave young man, 20-year-old, going for it.
Well, the Williams team set up for a nose change. There will be lots of bits that are off the nose on the car right now if he decides to come in. But we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you in a minute. There are your top 6. Will Jenson Button lose that 5th place, or is he going to sort of brave it out and stay out? Join us in a minute. Welcome back to the Austrian Grand Prix and Fox Sports Net. Johnny Herbert still in 7th place. Now we're looking at that battle. You can see Jenson Button. We thought he might have, Derek, made a pit stop to replace the damaged parts in his car. He's staying out.
He most certainly is, and very strongly as well. I think it looked like he lost bits of the barge board when he went across the sand there and kept it away from the barriers, as you mentioned. David, all that 15 seconds. What a real yawn it is at the front, I have to say, although they're driving their heart out trying to catch each other up. Interesting thing about the Arrows, I have to say, is that we know, John, we did mention, of course, they did have improved aerodynamics in the back of their car this weekend, and they had lower and revised weight distribution, which possibly helped towards that tremendous performance we saw at the beginning of the race.
They certainly had a very successful test last week at Silverstone. Verstappen, in fact, ended up being quickest.
Oh, dear.
Ricardo Zonta, and that looks like it's a terminal engine problem. The man who started 6th in the grid was responsible for taking out the World Championship leader.
Because he's got a fire at the back at the moment, but they'll probably get somebody ought to just give that a little quick hose. Yes, it's out. Maybe he pressed his own fire button now.
This is lap 60, and that was a great disappointment. Now we see coming up the hill, when she went big time. This is up into the Remus curve.
So I don't think he'll be in a hurry to get back to pits, because I'm sure Michael Schumacher will have a couple of things to say to him as he gets back, if not other people as well.
Well, I suppose one way of making a name for yourself is to take out the championship leader.
It is such a great pity, though, because he had done such an excellent job all weekend. In every session, he was right up there, and it looked like he was really going to make a name for himself today.
Well, I think he's a great young driver. I think he needs an opportunity, and I don't think he's had it really in BAR. It's been very much Villeneuve's team. And to move on to other pastures, could see the full potential of Ricardo Zonta, the young Brazilian, come to the fore.
This is Barrichello catching up. Stop go penalty for Mazzacani. Oops. Let it through. Yes.
All I can think is, Derek, that if you don't allow leading cars to come past, if you go past, I think it's 3 waved blue flags, then you suffer a stop-go penalty. That's the only thing we could possibly consider.
Here we go. What's right with Rubens Barrichello going up the inside. Gave him plenty of room there. Whoops. There's Ralph getting it all back together. He's not had a happy day at all.
Well, he's spun out of the Gosser curve. Of course, Gosser is a very well-known German-Austrian beer. And Ralph continues a very difficult afternoon here in Austria. Bigger brother Michael has decided, I think I've spent enough time here, it's time to move on. And now the second Grand Prix in succession where he has failed to finish and score points. We see Gaston Masticani come in to serve that 10-second stop penalty.
Here's Ralph coming in, and he loses it. Whoa, did he lose it going in there? Ooh, and on the dirt. Gets a lot of dirt all over that car. Fortunately, didn't take too much gravel. That is Ricardo Zonta trying to get whacked his head on the crane after all that incident. He's not very happy about that, is he? And lads. The damn crane was right in there to lift his car up. It hardly got out.
He's learned a lesson from David Coulthard as well.
Yes. He's saying, one more moment, please. He was trying to put the wheel back on the car because, of course, you get penalised if you don't. Michael Schumacher, only 2 races ago, was being sold, oh, you're going to win the championship. Michael said, no, you take one race at a time. Let's ride with Barrichello.
See some of the cars that have not made it. Zonta, Heidfeld, Alesi, De La Rosa, Verstappen, Frentzen. Alesi and Heidfeld certainly not going to be happy with Alain Prost. But let's look at our breakdown of the teams. McLaren, well, Hakkinen leading, Coulthard second. Doesn't get much better than that. Ferrari, Schumacher's out, Barrichello, sort of rather lackluster third place. Jordan, disaster. Frentzen out in the first corner. Was first, truly out in the first corner. Frentzen out about a lap later. Jaguar, Bertie in 11th. Johnny Herbert just outside the points in 7th. Not a great day for Williams either. Ralf Schumacher not doing much. Button in 5th place, but with reduced aerodynamics as he went off track. For Benetton, Fisichella out in that first corner shunt. Wurt in 9th. Alesi out, Heidfeld out, and, well, who took who out? Sauber, Salo in 6th place, Deniz in 10th, 1 point for Salo. And disappointment again for Arrow's promise so much earlier in the race, both out with gearbox problems. And Marginet in 8th, Gaston Masticani in 12th, still pounding away. Jacques Villeneuve 4th, 3 points. Zonta, the man of the race in some respects, he's out with a blown engine.
I'd have said in many respects he's the man of the race.
Now, Derek, do you want to stir up a hornet's nest, or do you want to stir up a hornet's nest? Because there's one there, and it's which garage is it?
Well, I think Zonta's done enough of that this weekend, as it were.
It's above the Ferrari garage, would you believe?
Well, one has to say that Ralf Schumacher is, in fact, now out of the race, having just told you he was 13th. He's decided that is it.
So Mika Hakkinen continues to lead in the A1 ring here in Austria. Stay with us and see the finish of the Austrian Grand Prix. Welcome back to the Grand Prix of Austria on Fox Sports Net. Our race leader, some 11.6 seconds ahead of second place teammate David Coulthard. Positions after 66 laps are Hakkinen, Coulthard, Barrichello, Villeneuve, Button still in a fine 5th place, battling away with a car with little aerodynamics, and Salo taking the final place in 6th. Let's look at the attrition at the A1 ring over the 4 years now. Cars finishing in 97, 98, 12, 99, 13, today 12. A bit of a car breaker, Derek.
It certainly seems to be. Let's ride with Rubens again. You know, I think there should be a point or something for fastest lap in the race. It would give extra incentive, as there should be maybe a point for fastest in qualifying, just to give that extra incentive to all the work that goes into it.
I think the pole lap certainly is where they have a point. The danger of, I think, in the past, people having a point for fastest lap is if they're out of contention, they can come in and throw a fresh set of tyres on and go out and try and score it, rather than, let's say, as David Coulthard, who's now just scored the fastest lap. It's a point of discussion.
It is a point of discussion. But I certainly think the qualifying one is an important one. But David is on a charge right now. He's knocking the second half a lap off Mika, but he's only got 4 laps to go in. So I don't think he's going to do much about it at the end. But he's just hoping Mika might have something slightly wrong with his car, because he doesn't know that Mika's being told to slow down. He assumes that he would be.
Well, I think David would clearly like to take 10 points, which of course would put him within 2 points of Michael Schumacher, who will still currently lead the Drivers' Championship. But as the situation stands, if Häkkinen goes on to win, it will mean that Coulthard will have 50 points to championship leader Michael Schumacher with 56.
That was back up to 185 miles an hour there with Rubens Barrichello. It's amazing, this part of the race, as a driver, it all seems so easy at this point. The car is almost driving you around the track. You've got into such a rhythm that you think you could go faster and faster and faster. A wonderful feeling. Look at that beautiful setting.
David Coulthard continuing to run as hard as possible. But the team very much in control, but something that has lost control, and that is for Ferrari. They will lose the lead of the Manufacturers' Championship. Assuming that McLaren take first and second place, they will go to 98 points. And with only Barrichello scoring points in third place, they will drop to second in the championship to 92. And looking at the Drivers' Championship, assuming things remain as they are, Michael Schumacher will be able to lead this race as he has done a few moments ago, still leading the Drivers' Championship with 56 points. Coulthard still in second place on 50. Mika Häkkinen still in third, but on 48. So that gap between first and third is now down to 8 points.
Well, David Coulthard's lap of 1:11.76 is the new track record. So he has been certainly winding the car up as we watch Jacques Villeneuve having yet another fine race in fourth place. And a super run for Jenson Button and Mika Salo. They're still going at it hammer and tongs as they come across one of the Minardis. Here we go. Whoa, dear, that was nice. That was Wirtz there running along with Salo.
So this is it. Mika Häkkinen from Finland. David Coulthard comes across the line to start his final lap. Comes across the line just under 10 seconds behind his teammate. And race leader climbs out of the Castrol curve, up the hill to the Remus curve, which Mika Häkkinen, the race leader, has just exited. Now it's down the long straight, the back straight, into the Gosser curve, 180 miles an hour down the back. Drops down, and this point in the race, the fans, the team, and the wife.
It's the fourth 1-2 of the year. They were first, second in Great Britain and in Spain and in France. Great credit to McLaren for making this comeback at this point, one has to say. Although they did a great job in France as well, but with David Coulthard winning.
Mika Häkkinen, 2 corners to go. He could almost, if he had to, put it into neutral, coast across the line. It's been an absolutely copybook drive from the Finn. Never put a wheel wrong. Looks stunning all weekend. Fantastic win for Mika Häkkinen. He is back. Don't discount him from this year's championship.
Absolutely brilliant, and he knows what a wonderful job he's done today, and the boys have done at McLaren Mercedes. Outstanding, under a lot of pressure.
And a fine second place for teammate David Coulthard. Picks up his 6 points, retains his second place in the championship. Robert Haug, Irja Häkkinen, Wolfgang Schattling from Mercedes-Benz, and Rubens Barrichello picks up the remaining podium position for Ferrari. Those 4 points, but not enough to keep them in the hunt for the Manufacturers' Championship. Ferrari dropped to second place. Well, there's a long gap now. We wait for fourth place Jacques Villeneuve to come through. And he'll be very pleased. And I think it's Derek going to add to his difficulties, deciding, do I stay with BAR or do I go?
The 2 McLarens parading round. It'd be nice to have seen the other cars go over the finish line, I have to say, with Button and Sala having a go, and of course Wirtz and Denise having a real go, as we saw.
So as the Finnish flags outnumber the Ferrari flags, stay with us for the trophy presentation, the champagne ceremony, and the drivers' press conference here from Coulthard and Häkkinen. Häkkinen, thoroughly deserved win. Welcome back, Mika, to the winner's podium. Here on Fox Sports Net, let's have a look at the results of this afternoon's Grand Prix. Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard dominate for McLaren. Barrichello third for Ferrari. Villeneuve fine fourth for BAR. Button a fine fifth for Williams. And Salo rounds out the top six for Sauber.
Obviously, apart from Mika Häkkinen's drive, I have to say Jacques Villeneuve's excellent fourth and a great drive from Jenson Button in fifth, John.
Seventh place Herbert for Jaguar. Genet eighth. Diniz ninth. Voorts 10th. Bertie in his first Grand Prix 11th. And Massacani 12th.
I think there I have to pick up Marc Genet. What a wonderful job he's done from being well down the grid and picking up a great 8th place.
Let's look at the driver points. Schumacher still leads, but only 2 points between him and Coulthard in second. Mika Häkkinen closes down to 8 points in third place. Barrichello still fourth. Fisichella still fifth. And unchanged in sixth is Ralf Schumacher. Jacques Villeneuve moves up to 11 points. In seventh, Trulli stays in eighth. Frentzen stays in ninth. Salo in 10th. Button 11th. And Irvine in 12th. Verstappen, Zonta and De La Rosa round out the top rounds.
And in the Constructors' Championship, what a turnaround. McLaren Mercedes have 98, Ferrari 92. And way back, Williams 19, Benetton 18, BAR 12, Jordan 11. And rounding it out, we have Sauber with 4, Jaguar with 3, Arrows with 3.
Well, there's a happy wife, Irja Häkkinen, and there's a happy man, Mika Häkkinen, back on the winner's podium. A driver who's come out of the doldrums 3 or 4 races. Now we're seeing a racing driver, and is he ever happy? Of course he is. David Coulthard, I think, disappointed to be second. The British national anthem for the winning constructor, McLaren.
Well, what a very happy Mika Häkkinen that makes. I bet he can't wait to sprinkle some of that champagne around, but he's first of all got to receive his trophy.
The Republic of Austria. To the constructor represented here, West McLaren Mercedes represented here
winning constructors trophy, presenting to the team manager.
Dr. Boris Nemcik, director of General Mobilcom Austria. To David Coulthard, second in the race, the trophy presented by Dr. Suzanne.
David Coulthard getting second place trophy, well deserved of course, and reasonably content to get those second place points.
And to the third place driver, Rubens Barrichello, the trophy presented by Mrs. Valklaut Klasnik.
The third place driver, of course, Rubens Barrichello picking up a well-earned third place, although one began to wonder whether he had some problems there.
And the champagne! Not letting Dave Ryan go.
Yeah, Mika Häkkinen went storming behind the podium after the team manager trying to hose him down with this mum champagne, John.
Yes, Davy Ryan is the man, and in fact, I think Mika has gone behind the podium. Yes, there he is, and poor Davy Ryan's going to get a right shower of champagne in his eyes, but there is one man who I have not seen and look as happy as that. I think all year he's not had that contentment. I think it was probably back in Japan last year when he won his second World Championship. David Coulthard a little bit less exuberant, happy to pick up 6 points. And as Mika Häkkinen on his slow down lap waves to the Finnish crowds. They come from Finland all over Europe to support him. We're going to take a commercial break, but we'll be back in a moment to hear from the press conference from Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello.
Finishing the 2000 Austrian Grand Prix, Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello. Mika, many congratulations on a very dominant victory. It's 16th of your career and your first since Barcelona. If I can just start by asking you about the start and in particular the first corner, could you see anything from your vantage point on the track of what happened?
No, I did not see what happened. I just saw what happened was going round the first corner, when I was heading for turn 2, they showed yellow flags, and I was a bit surprised why they're showing yellow flags over there. But then later on, after turn 2, the team informed about the safety car, and it was impossible to really see what happened. But then when I went next lap, I saw a lot of cars on the gravel, so I realized what happened.
Now, early on in the race, you received a shift rev sign from your pit. What was that?
Yeah, it's something what the driver doesn't necessarily want to sometimes see. It basically means it's no point to rev the engine in the maximum RPM, so you don't have to take everything out of the engine. In that point, personally, I was not sure exactly was there a problem, or did they show me just it was no point to push. So automatically I did drop the RPM, couple hundred reps.
But there had been no team orders at that point or anything like that?
What?
No team orders at that point?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay. Mika, look, well done.
Thank you.
David, you made a super start, equal with Mika, and then seemed to brake very hard into turn 1. Look, did you change of heart going into there?
Well, you have to brake hard for the corners, first of all, and being on the inside, then you never come quite sure exactly where the dust is and how much grip you're going to have. So I took it as far as I felt comfortable, and obviously Mika had the advantage because he was on the outside. So you just have to sometimes accept that you can't brake as hard and as late on the inside line as you can on the outside. Simple as that. Mika
pulled out a significant gap in the first stint. Did you have any problems? Because he then came back and set fastest lap right at the end to prove that you had the pace.
No, not especially. I was, first of all, as you can probably imagine, quite happy with the outcome of the first lap, because that gave me an opportunity right away to close in a lot on Michael. And it became clear after about 8 or 9 laps that the extra fuel I was carrying initially meant that Mika was able to open up a slight gap. So then there was no real point to battle really hard, because I'm chasing a slightly quicker car at that point, and in reality I could have turned what was an easy 6 points into maybe nothing if we were really battling hard on the track. So I was quite comfortable to just today accept the 6 points, try and hope the car was reliable, which it was, and I said to the guys in the slow down lap, that's the car has finished every Grand Prix since Brazil, including Brazil, and I think that's fantastic reliability, and hopefully that'll continue for the rest of the season.
You're now just 6 points behind Michael Schumacher. Are you thinking of the world title yet?
No, I don't think there's any need to think about that. It's individual races that if you do well in all of those, then the reward for that is having more points than the others in a world championship. So I just want to look towards the next Grand Prix, and I think we'll be strong there. I think I'll be strong there, and try and get maximum points at that race.
Well done, David. Thanks a lot. Rubens, you're probably the best qualified here to comment on the first corner mayhem. How did you see it?
Well, actually, I didn't see very much. I saw that Michael came on the inside, and I didn't want to make any problem for him, because we teammates, we have to work together for Ferrari. All of a sudden, I was hit by somebody, and obviously I went out on the track on the gravel, And you know, I was lucky to survive then, and really I'm lucky to finish third today, because the car was undrivable until I came to the pit stop, and then we made a little bit of adjustment. And so the car, it was simply not what I expected, just because the floor was broken.
And that's why you seemed unable to do anything about Pedro de la Rosa.
Exactly. I mean, I was struggling with a very loose car at that point, and I was just hoping that things would change. It changed later on after the pit stop, but it was too late.
Rubens, many thanks. Mika, McLaren have now taken the lead in the Constructors' Championship by 8 points.
Good.
We go to Hockenheim, a power track. You've got a very good engine. You must feel very confident there.
There is all the reasons to feel confident, yes, to go to Hockenheim. All the past years we always have been very competitive over there and very quick. So we're going to go flat out. We are confident.
Thank you, Mika, and well done.
If proof was ever needed that the McLaren Mercedes-Benz roller coaster's back on track, you have it there today, Derek.
Well, there you are. I mean, both of them must be very, very happy indeed. But what about Schumacher? Must have been his worst nightmare. There he was, looking so good in the World Championship. Now he's fighting for it.
Well, we'll be back in a minute. Stay with us here on Fox Sportsnet from Austria. Welcome back to Fox Sportsnet, and in 2 weeks' time we're off to the German Grand Prix at the Hockenheim Ring. July the 30th at 10 a.m. local, except in Florida, where it'll be at 12:30 p.m. local. Well, 2 weeks' time, Hockenheim Ring, Derek, Michael Schumacher home Grand Prix.
Well, it has to make you wonder, doesn't it? The McLarens always do go exceptionally well on that sort of a circuit. But before we go there, John, I think we should thank you very much for standing in for Mike Joy so expertly. Thanks for that.
Well, I have to say it's been a joy for me as well, and thanks to Derek Bell in the booth and Peter Windsor down in the pits. And thinking about Hockenheim Ring, well, it's going to be a tough race. Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard, that battle for the championship. Only 8 points between the top three. It's going to be magic. Häkkinen and Coulthard celebrating this afternoon. Will they do the same in those 2 weeks' time? Join us here on Fox Sportnet for the German Grand Prix.